Well, it is autumn equinox 2024. And as you can hear, I'm not feeling too good and my voice is not doing too well. But I'm going to try and read the equinox ceremony of the Thelemic Order of the Golden Dawn because it's a beautiful ritual. It's fairly brief. I'm hoping I can get through it okay. And I love it. The equinox ceremony of the Thelemic Order of the Golden Dawn. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Required. For the temple, altar, stelae of revealing, black and white pillars, black and white taper candles of equal length and quality may be used if pillars are unavailable. Cup of lustral water for purification, censer of incense for consecration. For the altar, rose in the east, I like to use rose oil, red lamp or candle in the south, cup of wine or water in the west, cake of light or paten of bread and salt in the north, copy of Liber Legis, the book of the law, in the center. These are arranged on the altar at the inception of the rite. For the initiate, unicursal hexagram or the like, black robe, red shoes or socks, outer wand of double power. The opening. Perform the lesser banishing of the ritual of the pentagram. The traditional four winds pentagram formula is recommended to be in correspondence with the remainder of the rite. Go to the center of the temple, knock 353 on the altar, and say, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Go to the east of the temple, take up the cup of lustral water. For purification, hold it up toward the east and say, "So therefore first the initiate who governeth the works of fire must sprinkle with the lustral waters of the resounding sea. Make a cross in the air with the cup and sprinkle a few drops of water 3 times toward the east. Pass to the south, west, and north, repeating the purification in each quarter, then return to the east and say, I purify the temple with water. Take up the censer of incense for consecration, hold it up toward the east, and say, And when all the phantoms have vanished, thou shalt see the holy and formless fire, that fire which darts and flashes through the hidden depths of the universe. Make a cross in the air with the censer, and swing it thrice toward the east. Pass to the south, west, and north, repeating the censing at each quarter, and return to the east and say, I consecrate the temple with fire. Circumambulate 3 times clockwise, giving the sign of Horus when passing the east, so as to project the force that radiates therefrom. Begin and end in the northeast, and then say, The mystic circumambulation symbolical of the rise of light is accomplished. Go to the center of the temple, face east, give the sign of Horus, and say, Unity uttermost showed, I adore the might of thy breath, supreme and terrible God, who makest the gods and death to tremble before thee. I adore thee. Appear on the throne of Ra, open the ways of the Ku, lighten the ways of the Ka, the ways of the cabs run through, to stir me or still me, let it fill me. Return in the sign of silence, and then say, In the name of the supreme and terrible Lord of the universe, crowned and conquering, I declare that the Son of Light has arisen, and the shadows of darkness flee away. Knock and say cabs, knock and say knock and say pecht, knock and say conks, knock and say knock and say pax, knock and say light, knock and say in, knock and say extension. Knock 353 on the altar and say, Love is the law, love under will. Make the signs of the neophyte toward the east. The ceremony. At the foot of the altar say, I will now celebrate the festival of the autumnal equinox. First, I will consecrate the return of the autumnal equinox according to the ancient customs. Light, night, east, west, air, water, knock and say, I am the reconciler between them. Heat, cold, south, north, fire, earth, knock and say, I am the reconciler between them. Knock and say, one creator, one preserver, knock and say, one destroyer, one redeemer, knock and say, one reconciler between them. Take up the rose, place it in the east of the temple, and return to the altar. Take up the fire, place it in the south of the temple, and return to the altar. Take up the water, place it in the west of the temple, and return to the altar. Take up the cake of light or paten of bread and salt, place it in the north of the temple, and return to the altar. I will now adore the lords of the universe. Go to the east of the temple, take up the rose, and say, Holy art thou, O Lord of the air, thou Lord of liberty, to which I adhere. O thou perpetual breath of ecstasy, come thou forth, I say unto thee. Make with the rose the sign of the cross in the east. Put down the rose. Go to the south of the temple, take up the fire, and say, Holy art thou, O Lord of the fire, thou Lord of light, to which I aspire. O thou flashing flame of eternity, come thou forth, I say unto thee. Make with the fire the sign of the cross in the south. Put down the fire. Go to the west of the temple, take up the water, and say, Holy art thou, O Lord of the water, thou Lord of love and mystic rapture. O thou inscrutable depth of the sea, come thou forth, I say unto thee. Make the sign of the cross with the water in the west. Put down the water. Go to the north of the temple, take up the cake of light, or paten of bread and salt, and say, Holy art thou, O Lord of the earth, thou Lord of life, my essence of birth. O thou soul of all forms that I see, come thou forth, I say unto thee. Make with the cake or bread and salt the sign of the cross in the north. Put down the cake or bread and salt. Return to the altar and say, I will now adore the Lord of the universe. Facing east, say, O thou Lord of the elements of life, who art the creator of all things, the master of all manifestation, and the spirit hidden in all matter, thee I adore and I invoke. Thine is the air with its movement, thine is the fire with its flashing flame, thine is the water with its flux and reflux, thine is the earth with its eternal stability. Come thou forth unto me in this holy temple that is purified and consecrated unto thee, that thou mayest administer unto me those magical powers of the four elements that be, and the wisdom to exercise those powers unto the attainment of light, life, love, and liberty. Be thou mighty within me, and let thy spirit descend upon my body, transforming my senses into fit vehicles for the manifestation of my true will, that I may progress in thy light and awaken in the knowledge and conversation of thee. Thou, crowned and conquering Lord of the universe, thou, supreme and terrible God, who makest the gods and death to tremble before thee, thee I adore and invoke. I raise thy spell, I invoke thy spirit, I greet thy presence, O Lord of the word and of the silence. Look with favor upon me and upon all other members of the Thelemic order of the Golden Dawn, of which I am a zealous member, and grant that we may at length attain to the stone of the wise, the summum bonum, true wisdom, and perfect happiness. To the glory of thine ineffable name. Trace in the air with your wand the symbol of the cross and circle. This is done as described in the order's paper on the rose cross ritual. The wand of double power is held by the black end, with the white end facing out to invoke and say, in the name of the Lord of the universe, crowned and conquering, I declare that the elements and spirit are invoked to manifest light, life, love, and liberty. I will now partake thereof during this Thelemic ceremony of the autumnal equinox. Give the sign of the Enterer and say, in the name of the crowned and conquering Lord of the universe, I declare that the sun has entered Libra, the sign of the autumnal equinox. Return in the sign of silence. I will now receive the word of the equinox. Receive the word from Liber Legis and say it aloud. At this point in the ceremony, you may also receive a tarot card and or I Ching hexagram divining the nature of the next 6 months. Nothing now remains but to partake of the mystic repast, composed of the symbols of the 4 elements, and to establish myself in the center of the Holy Cross in the sanctuary of my soul.